Back on YouTube today with more of Big Ten Week. We're taking a week or almost a week and dedicating it to each of the Power 5 conferences. I did the ACC first. I'll put a link up here somewhere to those videos for you guys that missed them and want to check them out. And this is what the third or fourth Big Ten video we've done. I'll put a link to a Big Ten playlist up here too if you missed any of the previous videos. But let's get started with today's. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on YouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And two Big Ten video today. We're going to talk about some of the best players in the Big Ten, right? I did this for the ACC, I'm going to do it the same way for the Big Ten. So what I've decided to do is just stick to offensive players, and I'm not going to include any offensive linemen. I know a lot of times offensive linemen are some of the best players on a team or in a league. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to be talking about skill position players. So quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. All right, now I know there are obviously more than 10 good players within the Big Ten, but...
No, it might be less.
Well, you know what I mean. There's more than 10 good players within the Big Ten. So what this list is, and this really, I guess this really isn't even like a top 10 list or best 10 list. It's sort of a combination of players that I think are really, really good or are going to be really, really good this year, sort of combined with some players who are my favorites to watch. A lot of you guys who have been around the channel for a while know that I'm a huge fan of college football and college football players. Yes, I'm a Georgia fan. I don't try to hide it, but I appreciate elite college football players no matter who they play for. And, you know, I tend to get fascinated or fixed sometimes on certain players at certain teams, and maybe some of those players end up on this list and you disagree with me that they're actually a top 10 player in the Big Ten, and that's fine. But I think all 10 of these players are pretty good. All right, here we go. We're going to get started. Let's grab my list here. Yeah. Copious notes, so you know it's time to get serious. Well, these are in no particular order, okay? Well, basically they're in position order. I'm gonna name a couple of quarterbacks, a couple of running backs, a couple of wide receivers, a couple of tight ends that I think are really, really good within the Big Ten. If you want to consider this my top 10 players list or whatever, like I said, that's fine. These are players that I think are really, really good, and I enjoy watching on Saturdays in the fall. Let's start with quarterback, Nebraska, Adrian Martinez. A lot of mixed feelings on Nebraska this year, aren't there? Scott Frost, of course, everyone knows what he did at UCF. But a terrible first year at Nebraska. I mean, no real way to sugarcoat it. What did he start out? 0-4, 0-5, something like that. Finished, I think, 4-8. But definitely a better team the second half of the season than they were the first. And if you watched Nebraska play at all last year, one player stood out, and that was Adrian Martinez, their quarterback. For Scott Frost to be successful, in my opinion, he has to have an elite quarterback who can run his offense consistently and at a very high level. And I think Adrian Martinez is that guy. He even appears on some Heisman lists. Not that he's a favorite or a front runner, but if you look at like a top 10 or 15 list, you're likely to find him on there. Of course, he'll be a true sophomore this year. What did he do last year? Let's see. Played in 11 games. This is another thing he's got to avoid is injuries and even more than that, just getting hurt. He played a lot last year, hurt, and then he was injured a couple of times and missed some games. So he played in 11 games. He's got to stay on the field. He's the key to Nebraska having a successful season this year, in my opinion. All right, what did he do last year? Played in 11 games, and this is something he's got to avoid this year, right? Getting hurt or injured. He missed some time last year. Spent a lot of the season hurt, but still played, and then injured and missed a couple of games too. But he completed 65% of his passes. That's elite. I mean, if you look at the best college football quarterbacks, they're completing somewhere in the neighborhood of 63, 64 to 66, 67% of their passes. He falls right in the middle of that, right? 2,617 yards. So not a ton of yards through the air, but he's able to make up some of that on the ground, right, which we'll get to in a second. Threw for 17 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. So not a whole lot of mistakes, and that's, again, something you sometimes see from a true freshman quarterback. Mistakes, and a lot of turnovers. Twice as many touchdowns as interceptions through the air for Adrian Martinez last year with the 17-to-8 ratio. And then on the ground, he picked up another 629 yards and another 8 touchdowns. And this takes me right back to what I said about a quarterback really being a key to a Scott Frost offense. If you look at what he did at UCF, he had some athletic quarterbacks down there. Of course, McKenzie Milton still there. Good luck to him this year coming off that injury, by the way. Adrian Martinez is that guy for Scott Frost. I think he's the quarterback that can take Scott Frost in Nebraska where they want to go. Will it be this year? I don't know. They're in the weaker side of the division, but Adrian Martinez, and look, here's the thing with quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year. Name the 2 best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. It's hard to do. For it seems like several years, Ohio State had a returning quarterback, or at least a quarterback with experience coming in that everybody was real high on. You don't have that this year. You got Justin Fields. Now, some people are high on him, but he's got next to no college experience at all, and none at Ohio State, right? Trace McSorley over at Penn State led the Big Ten in passing a couple of years while he was there. He's gone now, so new quarterback at Penn State. So, when you start naming the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten for 2018, I really don't see how you can leave Adrian Martinez off your list. If you want to make the argument that he's 2 or 3, fine. But he's one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year, in my opinion. Just again, 65%, 2,600 yards through the air, 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, ran for another 629, and 8 touchdowns, a 140 QBR. So, a good year last year as a true freshman. If he can stay healthy this year and take a couple of steps forward in that Scott Frost offense, I think he'll be a dangerous player in the Big Ten this year. But he's definitely on my list of top 10 players in the Big Ten. JT Barrett. All right, and sticking with the quarterbacks here, and again, name the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I mean, who are you going to name? JT Barrett. I have Michigan quarterback Shea Patterson on this list. Now, a lot of people are going to cry about this. Of course, Michigan's had one of the worst offenses in the Big Ten, it seems like, since Jim Harbaugh got there. I think if you look at last year's Michigan team, though, you see some positive signs when it comes to the QB situation, and it's a huge benefit for Shea Patterson to return for a second year in that offense. I think Michigan's going to be a really good team again this year. Can they get over the hump, finally win the division, beat Ohio State, maybe a Big Ten title? We'll see. But again, look around at the quarterbacks within the Big Ten. You got a lot of new faces in the Big Ten, and a lot of the teams that have consistently had the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten are breaking in new guys this year. So I think you got to include Shea Patterson on a list of best players in the Big Ten for this coming year. What'd he do last year? Now, he was a junior last year, but remember that was his first year at Michigan. He's a transfer from Ole Miss. He completed 65% of his passes. Again, that's a good number. Threw for 2,600 yards. Not a lot, but look at Michigan's passing yards over the last few years. They'll take 2,600 from Shea Patterson in his first year there. 22 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions, a QBR of 150. So, do any of these numbers just blow you away? No. Are these Dwayne Haskins numbers? No. They're not Trace McSorley numbers? No. Are these numbers going to win a Heisman? No. But Michigan's path to get where it wants to go does not involve a quarterback throwing for 3,500 or 4,000 yards, I don't think, right? They've got a great defense. Shea Patterson needs to improve a little bit. I think he needs to get closer to 3,300 yards maybe this year to go where they want to go. But I like Michigan this year in the Big Ten, and I think Shea Patterson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. JT Barrett. All right, who's the Big Ten got for running backs this year? Trying to pick the best running back in the Big Ten is not easy. I think it comes down to Jonathan Taylor or J.K. Dobbins, right? If you look at just the numbers alone, Jonathan Taylor has had the better numbers, of course, rushing for, I think it was almost 2,000 yards his freshman year, 1,900 and something yards. And then last year, his second year, sophomore year, eclipsing the 2,000 yard mark, 2,194 yards. And you say, well, Wisconsin's a one-man band. All they do is hand it off to Jonathan Taylor. I agree with you, but it's not just a matter of him getting way more carries than everyone else. He averaged 7.1 yards per carry, okay? It's not like this is a guy who's getting you 3.5 yards a carry, but he's running it 500 times to get his 2,000 yards, okay? 7.1 yards per carry is elite, even in the college level. You look at somebody like DeAndre Swift. This is about what he averages, around 7 yards per carry. So this guy is the real deal. 16 touchdowns. Now in 6.6 yards per carry, he averaged his freshman year. Now and the reason I bring that up is because, okay, 6.6 yards per carry as a freshman, yes, ton of carries, one-man offense type of thing. Didn't show any signs of slowing down year two from as far as being wore out or anything like that, increasing that from 6.6 to 7.1. Now, year 3 is going to be critical for Jonathan Taylor, in my opinion, in terms of the longevity of his career, right? Can he continue this pace for a 3rd straight year? He'll be gone after this year to the NFL. There's no way he's staying in Wisconsin for a 4th year and taking another 300 carries. It's just not going to happen. This will be his last year. You see a lot of running backs wear out towards the end of the year, their 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year in a system, when they're the only or the primary guy and they're getting, 15 plus, in some cases 20 plus carries a game. He didn't show any signs of that wear and tear last year. We'll see what happens this year, being his 3rd year, but Jonathan Taylor is a guy I've been talking about on this channel since he was a freshman. I love watching this guy play. I think he's a legitimate elite running back. I don't think he's just a product of a good offensive line, or I don't think he's just a product of a system. I don't think it's just the fact that they hand it to him a bunch of times. I think the guy's a legitimate NFL running back. So I obviously have him on this list. J.K. Dobbins. Now, this guy, I'm no Ohio State fan. This guy's fun to watch, right? Took a step back last year, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. He had 1,400 yards as a true freshman and was actually a Heisman hopeful, really, on everyone's Heisman list entering last year. Regressed to 1,053 yards. 7.2 yards a carry as a freshman, 4.6 yards per carry last year as a sophomore. He's got to turn that around this year. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but he had 10 touchdowns. He also caught 26 passes for 260 yards and another 2 touchdowns. This is a fun guy to watch play football. Most of you guys, I'm sure, have seen some Ohio State games. If you haven't, check some out. He's fun to watch. I think this is going to be a great year for J.K. Dobbins for a couple of reasons. Number one, Dwayne Haskins is gone. Ohio State threw the ball way too much last year, especially considering they had this guy in the backfield and really underutilized him, in my opinion. I know it seems like everybody loves to harp on that Ohio State-Purdue game, myself included, because it's hilarious. They're still scoring touchdowns on you. But Dwayne Haskins had like 79 pass attempts in that game. That's ridiculous. Now, Dwayne Haskins is a good quarterback. Hell, he's a great quarterback. Got drafted in the 1st round of the NFL, right? And for all I know, he'll be pretty successful in the NFL. There's never a reason to throw the ball 79 times in a game, no matter who you have at running back. But when you've got a guy like J.K. Dobbins, and here's the thing, if you watch that game, they couldn't stop Purdue's offense, so why not run the ball and slow the game down? It was just a bad, hard game to watch for an Ohio State fan. I think J.K. Dobbins turning it around this year. Haskins is gone. You got Justin Fields in. Now, I'm very high on Justin Fields. Obviously, he spent a year at Georgia last year, didn't play that much, transferred out. A lot of Georgia fans mad at him for one reason or another. I'm not one of those people. I wish Justin Fields nothing but the best, unless for some reason Ohio State plays Georgia, and I think Justin Fields has a chance to succeed at Ohio State. But the reality is, at least for the first 4 or 5 games of the season, I see a lot of running in Ohio State's future. You got J.K. Dobbins. This is your last year with him, most likely. Most good running backs go pro after year 3, rather than wasting miles in college. They go ahead and get paid for it in the NFL. I see a lot of running in Ohio State's immediate future, at least first half of the season. I really think they're going to ease Justin Fields in. And you got to remember, Justin Fields likes to run around too. So the combination of what you get from Justin Fields' legs with J.K. Dobbins in that backfield, Ohio State could have the best rushing team in the Big Ten this year, in my opinion. But I think J.K. Dobbins will have a much better year than what he had last year. Closer to what we saw out of him his freshman year when he picked up the 1,400 yards. It wouldn't surprise me to see him eclipse that mark this year and get closer to the 1,500 or 1,600 yard mark. But when you start talking about running backs in the Big Ten, you obviously have to include J.K. Dobbins. All right, here's one that I'm going to admit, this comes totally out of left field. This guy didn't do that much last year. I just sort of have a feeling about this guy, okay? Running back, Penn State, Ricky Slade. He's a sophomore. Played a little bit last year, not that much behind, was it Miles Sanders? Of course, Miles Sanders came in to replace Saquon Barkley. Now Miles Sanders is gone, and Ricky Slade is going to be the man this year. 5-star running back out of high school. The guy's got all the tools. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles. He's got the speed to get around the outside. Potential to be a great running back. And I think we'll see that this year for Penn State. Now, overall, I sort of consider this to be a transitional year for Penn State. Ricky Slade, first year starting, new quarterback there. I'm not expecting Penn State to win that division or anything, but I think Ricky Slade will be a bright spot on that team this year. What do you have? 257 yards last year only, I think 90 carries. Wasn't even that many, was it? No. Anyway, Averaged about 5.7 yards a carry and six touchdowns. All of these numbers obviously going to go way up this year with him being RB1 instead of just coming in as sort of last year really just to give Miles Sanders a breather. He'll be the man to watch this year on Penn State's offense. I think this guy is going to have a great year. I think by the middle of the season, everyone is going to know who this guy is, Ricky Slade, if they don't already. And he makes my list of the 10 best, most interesting, most exciting, whatever we're going to call it, players in the Big Ten for 2019. All right, which wide receivers do we need to keep an eye on in the Big Ten this coming year, 2019? Already mentioned a lot of turnover at the quarterback position, some really good quarterbacks moving on. Some of the better teams within the Big Ten breaking in new quarterbacks this year. Which ones will have elite wide receivers to throw the ball to? Well, let's start here. Ohio State wide receiver KJ Hill. This guy's a senior this year, redshirt senior, I believe. Didn't play his freshman year. 70 catches last year, 885 yards and 6 touchdowns. Justin Fields is going to love this guy, or you better learn to love him, right? The guy can catch, he can burn you deep, he can make first downs for you. This is a really good receiver within the Big Ten, 885 yards, nothing to scoff at. In my opinion, probably Ohio State is loaded at the wide receiver position. You can almost throw a dart in Ohio State's wide receiver room, and whoever it hits, you can say, well, they're probably going to have a pretty good year, and you'd probably be right. I decided to go with KJ Hill on this list. I'm sure someone, an Ohio State fan, maybe will let me know that I'm wrong and there's actually a better wide receiver. But for my money, in terms of who I like to watch, I'm looking forward to see KJ Hill play this year. I think he'll have a good year. I think Justin Fields is really going to love him. And he makes my list of best players for 2019 in the Big Ten. Okay, now I don't think anybody can argue these two here. I think no matter if any top 10 list you make involving offensive players in the Big Ten, I think both of these players would be on it. Up first, Michigan junior Donovan Peoples-Jones. Why he has 3 names, I don't know. That's irritating to me. I don't like that. Fortunately for him, it hasn't seemed to affect his ability on the football field. This guy's elite. 47 catches last year, 612 yards and 8 touchdowns. Now you say those aren't eye-popping numbers. Keep in mind, we're talking about Michigan here, okay? Was it 2 years ago, Michigan didn't have a touchdown pass to a wide receiver all year? Of course, last year they bring Shea Patterson in. We talked about him already. The offense took a step forward. It needs to take another big step forward this year if they're going to win the Big Ten, which is what Michigan fans have been hoping for forever. And I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is a big part of that. I think these numbers will go up this year. I think he'll have more receptions, more yards, and more touchdowns this year. Year 2 of him together with Shea Patterson. I think this will be the go-to guy on Michigan's offense in terms of wide receivers and passing downs and things like that. This is an elite playmaker here. This is an NFL wide receiver. Michigan's got to find a way to keep him involved in games, and I think they'll do that and have a pretty good year, but he comes in on my list of best players in the Big Ten for 2019. And now this is probably my favorite player to watch in all of the Big Ten. Wide receiver for Purdue. You say Purdue? Yeah, Purdue. Rondale Moore, 114 catches. 1,258 yards last year. Unbelievable. He also rushed for 213 yards and another 2 touchdowns. That's 10 yards per carry when he runs the ball, jet sweeps, things like that. If you watched the Ohio State game, and a lot of you did, this guy is still running wild in Ohio State's secondary. I think he had almost 200 yards receiving in that game and 2 touchdowns. This is one of the most exciting players for my money in all of college football. And although I don't expect Purdue to be a 10-win team or compete for a division title this year or anything like that, it's worth watching a few Purdue games just to see this guy play. I would take this guy on my team in a heartbeat. He's a playmaker. He's a baller. I don't care how tall he is. I don't care what he weighs. I don't care what he runs to 40 in. You throw all that stuff out. Watch this guy play football. He's borderline uncoverable. And once he gets the ball in his hands, I don't know that there's anybody in college football that's better in terms of yards after catch. Maybe Jerry Jeudy at Alabama. But this guy is a lot of fun to watch. Purdue wide receiver, Rondale Moore. All right, a couple of tight ends. I thought about just looking up an Iowa roster, finding the first 2 tight ends I saw and picking them, right? After watching both of Iowa's tight ends from last year get drafted in the first round of the NFL draft last month, that probably wouldn't have been a bad move. But anyway, I decided to go with a couple of returning tight ends. First up, Penn State. What's this guy's name? Pat Freimuth? Again, I didn't name you, sir, and I definitely didn't pick that spelling. So if I'm saying that wrong, you have to take that up with someone else. 26 catches for 368 yards last year and 8 touchdowns. Again, Penn State with a new quarterback this year. A big, strong, athletic tight end that can make plays, can be a quarterback's best friend, like a security blanket, and that's what this guy is, and that's what he will be this year. I don't think anybody will be surprised. 6'5", 260 pounds. I mean, there's some offensive linemen in college football that aren't that tall or weigh that much. He could play guard at 260 for some schools, right? This guy's an absolute beast. I think he'll be the best tight end in the Big Ten this year, unless someone just comes out of nowhere and surprises us. Iowa tight ends, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, Pat Freimuth, tight end, Penn State. All right, here's another guy. And you think of this team, you automatically think of fat white boys, and this fits right in here. Jake Ferguson, Wisconsin, 36 catches, 456 yards, more catches and more yards even than Pat Freimuth last year, and 4 touchdowns. Wisconsin, listen, Wisconsin is a boring team to watch, right? They haven't had an exciting or innovative offense. I mean, they run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. You know he's going to get 2,000 yards and 25 carries a game. Nothing exciting about the Wisconsin offense. It's old-time looking football, but they're good at it. They're going to have an NFL offensive line. They're going to have an NFL running back. And while it's been a long time since they had a playmaker at quarterback, they usually have quarterbacks who don't make a ton of mistakes. And those type of quarterbacks tend to love tight ends. I think he's going to have another great year this year. Again, this is somebody who I wouldn't be surprised. Now, they got a new quarterback. Wisconsin. I mentioned a lot of teams in the Big Ten breaking in new quarterbacks, some of the bigger name teams, Penn State, Ohio State, Wisconsin. But anyway, so if he can develop some chemistry with this new quarterback at Wisconsin, there's no reason he can't have a better year than last year. And I have him on my list of 10 players to keep an eye on in the Big Ten this year. So anyway, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know down below if there's any players you think should be in a top 10 list. What team are you a fan of? Who's the best couple of players on your team that maybe I should have considered for this list? Let me know in the comment section down below. Live show tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's a college football call-in show we do every Tuesday and Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube. Check it out if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys real soon. Have a great morning.
JT Barrett.